The British government has expressed a growing amount of concern, like most other European governments, about the threat of foreign fighters who have gone from the United Kingdom or Europe to the battlefield in Syria to participate in the fighting there. Often these individuals are joining with some of the more hardline elements of the insurgency, and what we've seen is that they're slowly getting dragged in ever more into the fight. For example, we have seen reports now at the weekend that we might possibly have seen the first British suicide bomber on the battlefield in Syria. And then today we see reports that it's possible that there's footage of British nationals fighting in Syria, potentially torturing or beating up a fellow rebel. What this all means is that we are increasingly seeing the complexification of the battlefield in Syria. From being something which was a sort of relatively clear civil struggle between government forces on the Assad side and a rebel force, we've slowly seen that the battlefield has scattered out and developed into this very complicated picture with all sorts of factions and groups on the ground fighting on both sides. On the rebel side, this has particularly taken the example of infighting between the various factions that claim some sort of or have some sort of allegiance or connection to Al-Qaeda core. And I think what we're seeing in these recent instances with British fighters in particular is that we're seeing how these individuals are really getting dragged into every aspect of the conflict. And it really shows how this conflict is a really increasingly brutal civil one, that these individuals going out there are not necessarily going to be able to participate in the sort of the pure civil war that they were hoping for, but they're rather getting dragged into what is becoming a far messier situation. The question from a threat perspective back here is of course what that all means. These individuals will have seen and experienced a lot more. They will be even more brutalized by their experience in this conflict. And that potentially puts them in a very difficult security bracket for security services here in the United Kingdom. I think the British security services, be they everything from the police to the CPS, they are growing increasingly concerned by the size of the picture that they're seeing. The volumes of people we're seeing out there, it started with a sort of trickle in 2011, seemed to take off in 2012, and in 2013 we really saw quite a few individuals traveling back and forth. And I think this year is probably on track to be somewhat similar. This means we're dealing with increasingly the low hundreds of individuals who are going out there and experiencing the battlefield. This presents a very substantial potential threat picture for the security services to surveil, and I think their response to this has been to raise the tenor of their commentary about this, to highlight that this is something they're actively doing something about.